Thank you so much for joining us at our Kensington campus this evening for our Year 10 Subject Selection and Information Evening. As a confession, yes, I do have an accent. I did not grow up here, but I did do my master's degree here at UNSW about 10 years ago. And so I've been doing these Year 10 evenings now for 10 years, about four to six of them per year. So I promise I am an expert in all of the things that you need to know about subject selection. Here's a quick review of all of the information that we're going to provide you with this evening. But before we do that, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and any elders past or present who may be here this evening as well. So as you can see, you'll be hearing from me a fair bit this evening, but you'll also be hearing from Trudy Knoller from the university's Admission Center, as well as two of our staff members from our Scholarships and Co-op program, and then finally Claire Guyver, one of our current students, talking about her experience here as a student at UNSW. There's a ton of information coming your way this evening, so if you do have questions, the faculties will be available after the program to answer any of those questions that you may have after we wrap up. But also feel free to take photos of the slides if that would be helpful. Don't furiously write down notes, just grab your camera phone and take a photo of those slides. I'll try to pose myself appropriately so that you can get a good shot as well. So, we're going to cut right to the chase and cut into the information that you came here for this evening, the subject selection information about the HSC. This is a presentation that comes directly to you from NESA, the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, used to be known as the Board of Studies or BOSTUS, and this presentation is available on their website, so if you're inclined, you're welcome to download it from their website. You won't get some of the good tweaks that I've given it, but nonetheless, it's still the same information and readily available to you from their website as well. So a couple of key basic facts on what you need to know about the HSC. So the Higher School Certificate is the culmination of your school career. The HSC is offered here in New South Wales, which happens to be the largest standardized education system in the world. And it reports on your record of achievement against the standard set for all students. So all students will be assessed against that same standard for the entire curriculum. And it shows your success in the achievements that you've made during the HSC. The HSC course structure. This is a really important structure part of the conversation of how the HSC is put together, and it will matter. There's another slide coming next, which is also important to factor in. So all HSC courses have a unit value, and most of those courses are 2 units in value, meaning that it is 120 hours of instruction, and they are marked out of a score of 100. There are then also 1-unit courses, and these are half of the 2-unit course. So they're 60 hours of instruction, and they result in a score out of 50. There are a number of 1-unit extension courses, and I'll go through those in a little bit more detail in a few moments. So requirements for the HSC. In Year 11, which is known also as the preliminary year in the HSC, you need to do a minimum of 12 units of study, and that you must satisfactorily complete your Year 11 study in order to move on to Year 12. Pretty basic, straightforward stuff. In Year 12, you need to do a minimum of 10 units of study. And there's a way to overload. You can study more than 10 units, but you must have a minimum of 10 in your Year 12. To get an HSC or to be eligible for an HSC, in Year 11 and Year 12, you must have 2 units of compulsory English. You cannot skip English. It doesn't matter what level of English you do, but you are required to do English in the HSC in New South Wales. Some of you may have family or friends who are studying the HSC or the equivalent in other states, and they may not be required to do English because their state doesn't require it. Unfortunately for you, if you love English, you're set. If you don't, you should get very familiar with English because it's going to be part of your HSC whether you like it or not. You also need to do at least 6 units of board-developed courses, and I'll go into detail about what a board-developed course is in a moment. You need to do 3 courses of at least 2-unit value or higher, and you need to do a minimum of 4 subjects in total. So you have to have at least 4 subjects as part of your HSC, and English can be included in that 4 subjects. For this year's cohort, you can do a maximum of 6 units of science, and usually there's an audible groan as people sigh out of sadness for the fact that they can only do 6 units of science. I thought so. However, you are a lucky cohort because you can do 7 units of science from 2019. So keep that in mind for any of you who are super enthused about science. Requirements for the HSC, meeting the minimum standard for literacy and numeracy. This is a new addition for your cohort. You're the first group of students who need to meet the literacy and numeracy standards, the minimum standards. To do that, you will need to do a number of tests in year 10, 11, and 12, and your school will be facilitating that with you. However, just so you're aware, this is what it looks like. You will need to meet that minimum standard, and you will need to meet it in both reading, numeracy, and finally in writing as well. You can see there are 45 multiple choice questions for both reading and numeracy, and then a one-answer question in writing. These will be available in these test windows. This is this year's test windows in the year 10 cohort. And you'll have 2 opportunities to sit those tests in year 10. So you're welcome to do that anytime you like in those particular windows. And again, your school will probably facilitate that with you in terms of encouraging you to do that at a particular time. But do make sure that you make an effort to get that minimum literacy, numeracy, and writing standard met, because without having met it, you cannot receive an HSC. Earlier, I mentioned board-developed courses and said that there needed to be a minimum of 4 units of board-developed courses as part of any HSC. This is a further breakdown of the types of HSC courses. So again, board-developed and board-endorsed, and there are subtle differences between them. With a board-developed course, it has an HSC exam, except for the optional exam in English, Studies and Mathematics Standard 1, and VET framework courses, so vocational education and training courses, are considered part of board-developed courses. All life skills courses are also board-developed courses, although life skills courses will not be applicable to the majority of people in this room who are considering university study in the future. A board-developed course may be included in the calculation of an ATAR, and Trudy, again, from the university's admission center, will be up in a moment to explain to you a little bit more about how an ATAR is actually calculated. But again, a board-developed course can be included in an ATAR, and some of that VET Ed can be counted as a board-developed course as well, and again, life skills within the board-developed courses. Within board-endorsed courses, there's no HSC exam, and it's a school-based assessment only. It is not included in the calculation of an ATAR, which does not necessarily mean you shouldn't do it. There's a good reason potentially to do some of those board-endorsed courses, but you would need to make sure that you're still meeting the minimum requirements for getting an ATAR. And again, some of the vocational education and training courses are also offered as board-endorsed courses. Then there's a further category that things get broken down by, both Category A courses and Category B courses. As it says on the screen, a Category A course may be included in your calculation of an ATAR, and it has a compulsory HSC examination. Category B courses, you can't have more than 2 units of Category B courses that will be included in an ATAR calculation. It has an optional HSC exam for some of those courses, and the VET vocational education and training curriculum fits into that Category B type course. This is a very straightforward fact. You need to satisfactorily complete every course that you attempt within the HSC. You need to follow the course outline and syllabus as has been outlined by NESA. You need to apply yourself with all due diligence to attempt to finish the requirements of that particular course, including any exam that might be required as part of that course. And you need to, I'm always amused by this line, you need to achieve some of the course outcomes. Let's shoot for all of the course outcomes as a starting point, and then maybe some will fit in through that eventually. The VET board-developed courses also require students to complete a mandatory work placement, and so that's something that you'll need to factor into your decision about whether or not to do a particular vocational and educational training course, is what that work placement might look like. Some additional requirements for the HSC is that you need to complete the HSC assessment tasks that are outlined for that particular course, and you need to get at least 50% of the marks required for that course, where the internal assessment and the exam. And you need to make a serious attempt to sit every exam that's part of your HSC course. You can't just say, oh, I've done the assessments at school and therefore I'm not going to do the exam. That doesn't count. That would not be satisfactorily completing an HSC course. You will also be required very soon to do a subject and online course called HSC All My Own Work. This was introduced about 6 years ago by then the Board of Studies. And essentially it's running you through the things that you need to know in order to make sure that you are not plagiarizing, that you're citing sources correctly, that you understand what copyright is, and that you are applying yourself properly through all of your HSC. So again, this will be facilitated by your school, but it is an online subject that you will need to do as well. Now let's dive into some of the detail of the individual courses within the HSC and how they're structured and the choices that will be made available to you starting with your subject selection in just a few months. First, English. Again, compulsory, you must do English. No matter which one of these Englishes you choose to study in year 11 or year 12, you must do at least one of them. With English Advanced, that's a 2-unit course and has an optional 1-unit course in English Extension 1. However, in order to do English Extension 1, you must also study English Advanced. So it becomes a total package of 3 units of English. Alternatively, you can do English Standard, English EAL/D, which is English as a second language, or officially English as an additional language or dialect, and English Studies is another option for some students. Not all of your schools will offer all of these subjects, so it will be important for you to understand what your school offers and what the right subject is for you based on your ability. One of the things that we hear from students who come from a non-English speaking background is that they're worried that they will be penalized for studying that particular English EALD instead of studying a higher level English for fear that it will penalize them in their ATAR calculation. It's really, really important for us that you study the right English for your background knowledge and level of skill in that area. It won't penalize you if you are doing it well at the level that you've elected to study at. It's important also to note that those of you who do not come from an non-English speaking background cannot enroll in the English EALD because that would be unfair, as you can imagine. So if you are enrolling in that English EALD subject, you will be required to complete a statutory declaration that indicates this is the right level of English for you. That's documentation that's maintained by your school and regularly audited by NESA to ensure that everyone is on an even playing field when it comes to the level of English that they do choose to study. In year 12, your options are very, very similar, except there's one addition. You can choose with English Advanced, which again is 2 units, to add English Extension 1, and you can choose to then add a 4th unit in English Extension 2. Again, you must study all 4 of them as a package. You can't choose to do English Advanced and English Extension 2 by itself. You need to do all 3 of those subjects, the 4 units, as one package. Or you can do just English Advanced, or just English Advanced and English Extension 1, and then add on the 4th unit in English Extension 2. Again, the other 3 English options apply for everyone in year 12 as well. Mathematics, another group that a lot of students either love or hate. And unfortunately for parents in the room, this is the moment when I tell you that in New South Wales, the HSC does not compulsorily require mathematics. So you are not required to study mathematics in the HSC. And sometimes there's a cheer from certain students. Not tonight, okay. All mathematicians, excellent. So within year 11, the preliminary year, you can choose Mathematics Advanced, Mathematics Extension 1, which again must be studied as part of your Mathematics Advanced, and then Mathematics Standard as a second option. Again, the first one, Mathematics Advanced, is a 2-unit course, Mathematics Standard is a 2-unit course, and Mathematics Extension 1 must be studied with Mathematics Advanced for a total combination of 3 units. In year 12, again, very similar to English, you have Mathematics Advanced, which you can then do with Extension 1 and Extension 2. Again, it must be studied as a full package, or Mathematics Standard 2 or Standard 1. Again, your school will help you understand the differences between these particular subjects and what your particular level and interest might mean in terms of which subjects you should go into. But you're also welcome to go onto the Board of Studies website and look at their actual syllabus for that particular course and say, look, this is what they're going to be expecting of me, and this is what I want to do, or this looks terrible to me and I don't want to study this. Absolutely use the resource that is NESA's website in finding out what that particular subject is going to be like. Within the HSC, there are a number of languages that you can study as well. And here at UNSW, we highly encourage students to consider doing a second language, not just because it helps you learn another language and communicate with people all around the world, but also because it is something that we recognize as a valuable way to help you stand out in a crowded employment market as well. So again, there are eligibility criteria for all of these different levels of language. Again, if you've been speaking Korean at home for the last 15 years, you can't just suddenly take a beginner's Korean course. So you do absolutely need to indicate what the right level of study is for your background level of knowledge. And again, that's a statutory declaration that will be kept on file by your school and audited by NESA. You can see that there is the four different levels, beginners, continuers, language and context, and then also language and literature. There are a number of languages available. Again, your school may not offer all languages, and so if you find yourself in that position, there are usually alternatives available in terms of either distance study or something else. So do make sure that you pursue that language, the second language, if it is something that you're really interested in. Additional extension courses. So those extension courses are those 1-unit courses that you can take in addition to the 2-unit starting point of that particular subject. They are available in history, music, science, and some of the vet ed courses also offer extension options. The industry curriculum framework, or the VET curriculum framework, it's a nationally endorsed training package. It has been developed in combination with the HSC, so those board endorsed or board developed courses. It includes an HSC outcome and has an optional HSC exam and can be sometimes included in your ATAR calculation. And most importantly, it includes a mandatory work placement. So if this is something that you're considering doing, you absolutely need to make sure that you're factoring in that work placement into your HSC study. Where is that going to fit? How are you going to get that work placement completed? These are the board-developed VET courses that are available. You can see there's a wide range of courses available. Again, you may choose to study this, and we wouldn't necessarily discourage you from considering doing one of these VET courses if it's something that is interesting to you and that you see as potentially relevant to your career path in the future. But just be mindful of the requirements from it and what it does in terms of an ATAR calculation for you as well, that you need to have that minimum of 10 units, and it needs to have the board-developed, board-endorsed versus Category A, Category B. The HSC credential, fairly straightforward. Your e-record from year 10, 11, and 12 is compiled within your ROSA, or your Record of School Achievement, which ultimately leads to your HSC certificate. You can check out your e-record and your ROSA at any time in that process via the NESA website, and then eventually at the end of that process, if you've successfully completed all of those elements, you will be given an HSC. Your HSC marks. 50% of your mark in each subject will be based on an internal assessment at your school, and the other 50% will be based on an external exam that you sit at the end of the year. Those are combined and go to your HSC reported mark. That then gets handled by the university's admission center to go into the calculation of your ATAR, which Trudy will be here in a moment to explain in a little bit more detail. And the key information that you need to factor in when it comes to picking the right subjects. So there's a range of people that you should consult about your abilities. You should ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? What do I see myself doing in the future? If you don't know the answer to that question, that's totally okay. You have time to figure it out. But then if you are one of those students who is unsure of where you're going in the future, then make sure that you're picking subjects that give you some flexibility, that allow you to kind of maneuver and change in the future if that's something that you're unsure of which direction to go in. Some students will be very clear and say, I absolutely know that I am going to become a packaging engineer, and therefore a certain level of certain subjects within the HSC will be quite useful to you. So do keep that in mind. Also think about what is interesting and what makes you excited to study. These are going to be really important as you go through year 11 and year 12. If you hate the subjects that you're doing, you're not going to do as well in them. And so it's important to pick subjects that you enjoy and that will be based around the interests that you have as an individual. It's also important, as I've said before, to think about where your career might take you in the future. Now, I can hand on heart tell you that I never would have predicted in year 10 that I would be standing on a stage here in Australia talking to people about picking subjects in the HSC. So you never know where your career might take you, but be conscious of things that if you think of yourself as a mad scientist, that you're including some maths and some science options in your HSC. It's an important thing to think about. The syllabus requirements are also a really important thing to keep in mind when you're picking your individual subjects. So one of the things that can happen, and I think this is the next line down, the subject combinations, there will be individual assignments or work, pieces of work that you'll need to complete as part of particular subjects. When those are due in the year, if you pick a number of subjects that all have an assessment that's due at the exact same time in the year, you need to be somebody who is capable of time management and doing that particularly well. If all of your assessments are due within 1 week of one another, and you've got 3 subjects with major pieces of work due at the same time, that could prove challenging for a number of students, even those of you who are the best at time management. So another thing to factor in when you're picking your subjects. And finally, what are your other commitments? Because life is not going to stop once you start the year 11 and year 12 HSC. You should still find time to, if you're today playing a sport, keep playing that sport. If you're playing an instrument, if you're volunteering, if you're working, these are all things that you shouldn't necessarily give up to do the HSC. It's about finding the right balance between those things, because if you're doing all HSC all the time, you're not likely to perform as well in the HSC as if you had a little bit of balance in your life. So think about what are those other things that you want to be able to continue to do while you're studying the HSC. And then these other questions, what do I want to do in my future? What pathway is best for me? These are all conversations that you can have with a number of people, including your careers advisor, your teacher, your the subject teacher in that particular area, a year advisor. All of these people are great people to consult about what the right thing for you to do is. Another group there that I skipped over is parents. I know that parents are sometimes not the people you most want to talk to about your subject selection choices, but they do have occasionally some good insights to share. Occasionally, not always, but occasionally. So make sure that you're chatting with them as well, because they often know you best. And so it's really important to chat with them about what you're interested in as well. You don't always have to take their direction on this. I'm sorry, parents. But it's important to make sure that you're consulting all of those people who know you well and know what you're good at. All of this information, again, is on the NESA website, Education Standards website, and on the UAC website that Trudy will be talking about in a moment. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome up Trudy Noller from the University's Admission Center. Thank you.
Good evening. It's really nice to see so many people here this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. UAC. For those of you who maybe don't know who UAC is, we are a centralised office that looks after university applications. But the main thing that people know us by is the fact that we calculate all New South Wales HSC ATAR. The first thing I want to talk to you about this evening is the difference between HSC marks and the ATAR, because once you understand that there's a difference, then you understand the ATAR a little easier. HSC marks are the marks that NESA provide to students at the end of Year 12. It shows, their certificate shows the courses they've taken, the HSC mark, and the performance band that that mark relates to. So the bands 1 to 6, 6 being the highest. Okay, we all remember those? HSC marks, of course, are all about a student's performance in the HSC, so how well they've done. The next day, the ATAR is released, and that number, that one number, is about a student's position against all other students in New South Wales. Okay, so performance and position. A good performance, of course, does not guarantee a high position, and the only thing a student can control in the whole scenario of HSC and the ATAR is how well they're going to perform. You can't control your position because you can't control your competition. Now, to understand that a little more, here's a little bit of a scenario. We talk about it like you're in a running race. So when you're in that race, and it's the whole of Year 12, you're in a cross-country race, and you get to the very end, and your son or daughter might be standing there feeling really thrilled with themselves because they've just done their personal best in that race. Like the HSC, we would hope they're getting the best marks they've ever got when they finish HSC. Right, we're back to the race. We're standing on the finish line. You're really excited. However, when you're standing there, you're thinking, I've just done my personal best, but I'm actually here on the finish line in the middle of the pack. That could be like your ATAR. Your performance and your position are going to look very different. Like your HSC marks and your ATAR are going to look very different. Remember, performance is about how well you've done in the HSC. Your ATAR is just telling you where you're positioned amongst all other students. So what is it anyway? What is the ATAR? Well, it is a numeric measure that measures a student's overall academic achievement in the HSC in relation to everybody else in the state. It's a number between 0 and 99.95. However, we only report ATARs of 30 and above. One thing we do need to remember, it is a rank, not a mark or a score. That rank will not define you as a student for the rest of your academic life. It just tells us right here, right now, where you are. It's like anything else you do when you've been at school. At the end of the year, and you get your son or daughter's reports, it tells you where they are at the moment. It doesn't mean they're not going to reach a higher level later on. It just means right at the moment, that's where they are. I think the thing we do need to remember also is that last point. The ATAR is a singular number that ranks students for the sole purpose of university entry. At the end of the day, if you don't get the ATAR that you need or would like to help you get to where you want to be, then don't panic, because there's many other ways of gaining access to university. To be eligible for an ATAR, well, you need 10 units of board-developed courses, which is what Jonathon was talking about. At the moment, you'll be picking courses, at least 12 units. You must complete those 12 units in year 11 to satisfy that preliminary year. Once you go into year 12, you can drop back to 10 units if you like. And in actual fact, 56% of students last year only took 10 units of study. Does that mean what? It just means that that's been the trend lately. Your teachers and your school will, of course, discuss the whole 10 units or 12 units or the whole HSC and subjects and so forth. But of course, you only need 10 units for an ATAR of board-developed courses. And of course, these courses are all examinable by NESA. When we calculate your ATAR, it's based on your best 2 units of English and the next best 8 units from the remaining units. So if you're taking 11 units, that 1 unit course could be included in the calculation, depending on how well you've done in that particular course. The ATAR is based on an aggregate of scaled marks. If you were at school back in the dark ages where you got an aggregate out of 500, yes, thank you. We still do the same thing. We still get an aggregate out of 500, and we calculate that from the best 10 units of scaled marks. We use the best 2 units of English and then the next best 8 units after that. And as you can see by my diagram, we cut all courses up into single units, just in half. That's all it is. For those of you who are going to take a Category B or a VET course, you must sit the exam with that course, the compulsory exam. If you don't sit the exam, then we can't use it as part of the calculation. So just be aware of that. The ATAR and scaling, you heard me talk scaling, and most people are a bit worried about it, and I'm here hopefully to tell you not to worry about it and that you'll understand why when we get through it. Different HSC courses, of course, have very different groups of students studying them. To create an even playing field, raw HSC marks have to be adjusted, of course, before we can calculate the ATAR. This adjustment, of course, is called scaling. Scaling, if you want to know the math, is 118 simultaneous equations looking at averages, and it determines the scale mean of the course and the standard deviation, or spread of marks. Okay, we got that out the way. UAC actually does not scale courses. they're scaling students' academic ability. So interesting, because you always hear that course is going to scale me up and that course is going to scale me down. No, that is not how it works at all. Nothing scales you up or down. The only thing that scales you up and down is you. Because if you don't perform very well, you're not going to get great marks, you're going to be positioned badly, which means what? It means your ATAR will be affected. So, scaling, of course, calculates what your mark and your position would be if all courses were studied by all students. In other words, really all scaling is doing is placing all students in order in all their courses in academic ability rank. This is Fred and Laura. Has anyone ever seen Fred and Laura before? Maybe and maybe not. We use Fred and Laura with all students and parents so you get an understanding of what I'm talking about when it comes to performance and position. So here we have two students studied exactly the same courses in the HSC. Fred, at the end, gets marks of all 70. Laura, marks of all 80. Now, marks between 70 and 79 are what we classify as a typical Band 4 student. Roughly 40% of students get marks in this area. Okay, so quite a great lump of students sit in those between those marks. Most students look at Fred's marks of 70 and they look at his ATAR of 56.05 and they try to figure out how we calculated an ATAR so low with marks of 70. What they are trying to do is compare how well Fred performed against his position, like in the race. You know, he's done his very best, but his position might be in the middle of the pack. Laura only got 10 marks more, has done a lot better, but the story behind the ATAR is not in the performance or the marks, it's in that percentile column. That percentile column tells us where each student is sitting within each of their courses. So if we have a look at biology, in 2017, Fred with a mark of 70 was placed in the 34th percentile. What does that mean? It means that last year, 66% of students got marks better than 70. Now, Mum and Dad, I know when I was at school, and maybe when you were at school, you got over 50 and you're pretty happy with that. These days, it's a lot different. The average marks sit above 75. Okay? Above 75. If we have a look at, go back to Fred and Laura and have a look at advanced English, mark of 70 last year, put Fred in the 10th percentile. 90% of students got marks better than 70. Look at Laura. Mark of 80, sounds fantastic. She's in the 41st percentile. So she's still in the bottom 50% for advanced English because last year the HSC mean for advanced English was 81. The year before 82, the year before 81, the year before 81, the year before 80, and I know that because I've been with you about 1 million years. However, going back to this, the moral to the story is really that to get an average ATAR, which is around 70, you must be getting marks on or above the average. Okay, so on or above the average. If you're a Fred, and let's face it, we can all be Fred sometimes and not sort of put too much effort into things. But if you're a Fred, when you get into year 11 and 12, get a great study pattern. Have your balance with sport still. Don't just lock your way in a tunnel and just keep studying. Have that balance. But do bits and pieces all the way along. Don't say, I'm going to put it off tomorrow because tomorrow will never come. Really, it's all about hard work. And what did a nice young man tonight said, you're only going to do really well if you do really well. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Subject selection, of course, is about choosing courses that you are good at, are interested in, and that may help you succeed in tertiary education. We would always recommend that you take the highest level of study in whatever topics that you choose to make your transition into university the best it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. So now a couple of bits and pieces of information that are going to be useful in terms of thinking about your application to university a couple of years from now. Now I know that feels like a long way off, but there are some things that you should be thinking about now, both if you're considering studying here at UNSW, but also potentially if you're thinking about study at another university as well. So I have self-appointed myself as representative of all universities this evening. I promise to deliver unbiased information as much as possible, but a couple of key things for you to keep in mind. So getting you into university, you will apply to university here at UNSW or any other university in New South Wales or the ACT via the university's admission center. That application is directly through their website. You'll get 5 preferences, and that application, an on-time deadline for that application is usually the end of September of year 12. So you've got some time before that actual application comes up. On that application, I mentioned you'll get 5 preferences, and that'll be, for instance, if you wanted to do a Bachelor of Arts here at UNSW, your number 1 preference would be the Bachelor of Arts at UNSW. Your number 2 might be the BA at another university. That's all you have to do for the majority of degrees here at UNSW, of which there's just under 300 at an undergraduate level. If you are interested in any of these degrees, the Bachelor of Aviation, Flying, Law, Medicine, Music, the UNSW Canberra at ADFA programs, or our CoOp Scholarship program, there's something you need to do in addition to your UAC application and that individual preference for that particular degree. In the case of aviation, it's a flight medical exam and an application directly to the School of Aviation here at UNSW. Law has the LAT, the Law Admission Test, in addition to your preference. Medicine has the UMAT exam, an application directly to the faculty, and an interview, as well as your preference. Music has an audition and a theory test. UNSW Canberra at ADFA has the Defence Force recruiting process, which can take up to 10 or 12 months to complete, so you need to start that near the end of year 11. And then the CoOp Scholarship program has an interview and an application directly for that program as well. Also, don't forget, if you are interested in any of our engineering degrees here at UNSW or in our Bachelor of Information Systems, which is offered by our Faculty of Business, there is a flexible engineering admission scheme and a BISAS, the Bachelor of Information Systems admission scheme, which may be applicable to you if you find yourself with an ATAR up to 10 points below what the cutoff is for that particular degree in that given year, and you've done subjects in the HSC that are relevant to those particular degrees. So if you've done subjects and you've done particularly well in them, like physics or like mathematics, those would be subjects that could potentially still get you into those degrees, even if you miss out on the ATAR by itself. So if you find yourself in that position in year 12, make sure that you absolutely ring the university and have a conversation, whether that's here at UNSW or any other university, about what might be an option as a pathway for you into a particular degree. Now those 2 pathways, the engineering admission scheme and the BISAS admission scheme, are only here at UNSW, but other universities offer similar schemes in a number of other programs of study as well. Also, finally, our portfolio entry is available in all of our degrees at UNSW Art and Design at the Paddington campus, and most of our degrees in the Faculty of Built Environment. And this will be based on a portfolio of work that you've kind of gathered over year 11 and year 12. You can apply for admission based on that portfolio as well as your ATAR, and if your ATAR is up to 10 points below the cutoff, you may still be made an offer into those particular programs. Again, contact the university if you find yourself in that particular situation. I've already covered portfolio entry, but I'll cover assumed knowledge at this point. So some of you will be familiar with the term prerequisite, meaning that you must have done A before you can do B. Here at UNSW and in most universities across New South Wales, we did away with prerequisites more than a decade ago. And what it used to be was that you had to do this HSC subject before we would make you an offer for a particular degree at university. Again, we got rid of most of those. And so we at UNSW have no prerequisites from HSC subjects. So you do not have to do a particular subject in the HSC in order to be eligible for an offer here at UNSW. However, we do have something called assumed knowledge, which will mean that we will teach you from day 1 in a particular degree here at UNSW as if you have studied that particular subject in the HSC. So if you haven't, you're going to be at a disadvantage, but it won't necessarily preclude you from getting an offer. Now, other universities are starting to reintroduce prerequisites, including our friends over on the other side of the city. They've reintroduced prerequisites for mathematics, and so it's important for you to be mindful of what other universities may have out there in terms of prerequisites for particular degrees that you may be interested in, and make sure that you're studying those subjects in the HSC if you are absolutely smitten on a particular degree that requires those prerequisites. Here at UNSW, again, no prerequisites, and if you find yourself in a position where you haven't done a particular subject that is assumed knowledge, we do offer bridging courses, and those are offered in chemistry, mathematics, and physics here at UNSW. They're taught intensively in the month before the semester or the term begins, and so you can condense an entire HSC study into 1 month. As you can imagine, that probably isn't quite the same thing as having done it in the actual HSC. So this is something you should absolutely take advantage of if it applies to you, but know that it's not a perfect substitute. And there are a number of other ways that you can get this knowledge. It could be self-taught. You could read through the syllabus and decide that you're a genius and you don't need to do the individual subject. But it's probably a good idea to at least consider those bridging courses if they apply to your situation. We won't assess you in terms of admission on your performance in a bridging course, and we don't care if you choose to do that bridging course with us at UNSW or another university or TAFE or anywhere that's convenient, but it will be to your advantage to make sure that you're doing that. Many of you, when speaking to the faculties, will have picked up a copy of our 2019 undergraduate guide. Inside this document, at the very back, you'll find a listing of all of our degrees here at UNSW listed by faculty. One of the categories in the columns there you'll notice is an assumed knowledge category that will say this degree has an assumed knowledge of this particular HSC subject. And so it's important that you have a look at that if and when you're making your HSC subject selections, if you're particularly interested in any one degree. Adjustment factors. TEXA, the Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Authority, has recently required all universities to do away with a term that most will be quite familiar with, which was the term bonus points. So we no longer call bonus points, we call them adjustment factors. So, adjustment factors, what do they actually mean? So we offer 3 different adjustment factors here at UNSW, and all universities will offer different types of adjustment factors or bonus points, and they will adjust your ATAR in various different ways. So it will be important for you to make sure that you understand the nuances of these programs, what you need to do to be eligible for them, and how they might affect you and your situation. So the 3 here at UNSW that are specific to UNSW, some other universities will have similar schemes as well, but it's important that you make sure that you compare the detail of each one and are comparing it in the context of that university alone. HSC Plus, these will be points that will be added to your ATAR if you have done subjects in the HSC that are relevant to the degree that you want to do here at UNSW, and you've performed well in those subjects. So a band 4, 5, or 6, or an E3 or an E4 in extension subjects, you will generally get 1 to 2 points per subject if it is relevant for your degree here at UNSW, and those are automatically added onto your ATAR. You can get a maximum of 5, no matter how amazing and wonderful you are. Even if you'd theoretically be eligible for 9 because you're awesome, you can only have a maximum of 5 applied automatically by UNSW. The way that works is if you have a raw ATAR, an ATAR of 90, and you are eligible for 3 HSC Plus points, you now have a selection rank of 93 when it comes to the university and the way we assess you for that particular degree. You can see all of those cutoffs in the back of the guide, and again, remember they change every year. I'll talk about those in a little bit in a moment as well. And also on the HSC Plus website, you can see all of the subjects that count for every degree, and they are grandfathered in. So if you check that website today, it will not change for your cohort until after you've had an option of being made an offer to UNSW 2 years from now. Elite Athletes, Performers, and Leaders Points, EAPL, are another adjustment factor scheme here at UNSW that you can apply for. Now, these are not automatic. You need to tell us how amazing and awesome you actually are in order for us to award these points for you. This will be for elite level performance in sport, leadership, music, academic things like debating or school captain. All of these things can have points added to your ATAR. Again, though, you need to submit an application and provide documentary evidence of the fact that you've made these particular achievements. This could be things like Gold Duke of Ed, AMEB grade 8s or above, debating at a state or a national or higher level. Any Olympians in the room, this would count for you as well. Usually there's not very many of those, but they do exist. So do make sure that you apply for these points in year 12 prior to the deadline, which is usually the end of November. This will recognize you for anything that you have done in year 11 or year 12. If you're an amazing overachiever and you already have competed at a national level for chess, this is not going to apply unless you continue to do that level of performance in year 11 and year 12. Again, make sure you apply for these points. They can be added, a maximum of 5 can be added to your ATAR, and again, they can be combined with HSC Plus for a total maximum here at UNSW of 10 points. So if you had a 90 ATAR and you were eligible for let's say 5 HSC Plus points and 3 elite athlete and performer and leader points, you would then have a 98 selection rank according to the university for those particular degrees that recognize it. EAPL applies for every degree here at UNSW except for the ones you most want it to. So it doesn't apply for medicine, it doesn't apply for law, it doesn't apply for a few other degrees as well, so do make sure you check out that website to find out which ones apply for you. Finally, Educational Access Scheme. This is a universal scheme offered by most universities, except for, I think, 2 in New South Wales. And this applies to anyone who may be experiencing long-term socioeconomic or educational disadvantage. Long-term is more than 6 months in year 11 and or year 12. If this applies to you, if you are eligible for Centrelink benefits, or if you have had a family breakdown, or there has been other trauma in your life, make sure that you are applying for these EAS points through UAC. It is directly through their website. And make sure that when this is happening to you, you are documenting it and you're talking to someone at your school about what's actually happening. They need to be there to support you, but they also need to be there to help justify on the application what disadvantage you've actually experienced. So make sure that you're applying for these. These are up to 10 points. Again, though, they can be applied only in combination with HSC Plus, EAPL, and EAS. The maximum total is 10 across all 3 combined. We introduced guaranteed entry a couple of years ago here at UNSW, and again in the back of the guide is a listing that shows what our cutoff was for semester 1, 2018, so what you had to have as a minimum ATAR in order to get an offer into that particular degree, and I should say a minimum selection rank, not ATAR. And we also publish a guaranteed entry rank, and that's published for term 1 of next year, of 2019. So how guaranteed entry works here at UNSW is if you meet the guaranteed entry cutoff of ATAR plus any adjustment factors, you will be made an offer. You're guaranteed an offer in the first round that we make offers for guaranteed entry. There's a whole lot more stuff to learn about that, but we'll tell you what you need to know in year 12 when you get to that point. But that's just so you know when you're looking at the information in the back of the guide what that means. I'm now going to hand over to David Abihana, who's one of our current students studying a Bachelor of Medicine, to talk to you about scholarships and why you should start thinking about them as a year 10 student. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, everyone. I'm a third-year medical student here at UNSW, and I've been lucky enough to receive 1 and 2 scholarships during my studies. Tonight, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the scholarships application process at UNSW. So to start off with, why does UNSW offer scholarships? Obviously, to provide financial support to students, and that ranges from $5,000 to $20,000 per year. The scholarships are designed to recognize academic achievements, but also to support diversity and equity and assist students who otherwise may not have been able to attend university at all. Every year, UNSW offers over $15 million worth of merit-based and equity-based scholarships, and the number and value of these scholarships continues to rise every year. So you can see that there is a large range of scholarships available at uni, and I guess the key message here is you don't have to be the smartest kid in your class to get a scholarship. So what is UNSW looking for in your application to them? For merit-based scholarships, they're looking for your interest in the degrees that you're applying for, your interest in UNSW itself, and your interest in possible career opportunities for your future. They'll be looking at your leadership skills, so times you've stepped up and how you've made a contribution. They'll be looking at academic achievements and other types of achievements, community involvement, so outside of school, what your interests and passions are and what you spend your time doing. And finally, and possibly most importantly, they'll be looking at your ability and potential to give back to the university and how you're going to contribute to the UNSW community. So it's great that you've all come tonight because you're in year 10, so you've still got a lot of time to work on all these things, and you've already made the first step in trying to seek this information out. So moving on from merit-based scholarships, we also have equity-based scholarships. So the UNSW 2025 strategy has a goal to increase the diversity and equity of our student body, and scholarships has a large role to play in this. So with equity-based scholarships, the key thing to know about applying for these is that it's done through the UAC and not through UNSW directly. And if any of the circumstances that you can see apply to you, then you may be eligible for an equity scholarship, so definitely look into that. And we've listed just 3 examples of the ones that are available this year. So we have 20 UNSW accommodation scholarships at $21,000 per year for the duration of your degree, 30 UNSW Access scholarships at $10,000 per year, and 122 President and Vice Chancellor's equity scholarships at $5,000 per year. So if any of these circumstances do apply, then apply through UAC and they'll have information on the supporting documentation that you will need for that application. So just to map it all out, we have the direct application for merit-based scholarships to us, the equity-based scholarships where you apply through UAC, and we also have some automatic selection scholarships, and those are based on academic merit, and an example there is the Scientia scholarship. So that's all the ones we have available. And in terms of how to apply, it's all online, and it's quite a quick and easy process. I like to say it's like online shopping, except for you get money instead of spending it. Anyways, scholarship applications open in July, and they close at the end of September. And that's for the merit-based ones, and you can see that UNSW's website is up. And then for the equity-based ones, you can see UAC's website, and you can find some more information on closing dates there. So I guess the message is, you're here today, start thinking about how you can demonstrate your interest and passion for education and for life, and I wish you the best of luck. Thanks.
Hi guys, I just want to start with a little bit of a survey to make sure that you're still awake and that I'm here for a good reason. So can I just see by a show of hands anyone who's involved in competitive sport at the moment? Anyone at all? Yeah, cool. Okay, anyone who's involved in music or performance, dance, anything like that? Yep, great. Not so many hands down the back. Okay. How about anyone who's involved in community or church activities? Yep. Okay, great. All right, anyone interested in having fun when they're at uni? There's a lot fewer hands than I thought. Okay, all right. How about anyone interested in getting $18,200 per year for 4 years while they're studying at uni? Sorry, I should have been more specific. Students who are interested, not parents. Carrying on. Okay, so I'm Michelle, I'm from the CoOp program office. It's a career development scholarship program, okay? It's a scholarship program that has evolved because sponsor companies want students who not only have the technical skills and the technical knowledge that you're going to learn at university, but also have the management capabilities and the soft skills to be able to operate effectively from day one when they go out into the workplace. Obviously, the technical skills and the academic knowledge are really, really important, but the CoOp program gives these companies an opportunity to see people in the workplace before they're offering them graduate roles. It gives students an opportunity to work in the areas that they're interested in, that they're studying in, to give them those capabilities by the time that they're graduating. So our CoOp scholars are graduating with practical experience as well as the technical knowledge, and this is what it's all about. So the $18,200 per year for 4 years is not a joke. It is nice, it is wonderful, but it's a career development scholarship. And the really exciting thing is the 9 to 18 months of industry placement that you're going to get in your area of study, in your area of choice, with a range of different sponsor companies. So that could be meaning that you're working for some of the leading companies in your industry while you're still at university. You could be working for the Coca-Colas or the Deloittes. You could be working for the Jaguar Land Rovers or the Sydney waters of your industry, so the big game leaders. You're not just going to be working for a tiny little company around the corner. It gives you an opportunity to experience what it is you're studying in the workplace and find out where you really fit. As well as that, our scholars are doing professional development and leadership training throughout the course of their programs. So they're developing those soft skills that we're identifying in them from high school, that we're identifying them as having kernels of while they're here at university. They're having heaps of fun. It's a nice little cohort of scholars, and then they've got alumni mentors and professional mentors out in the industry. So you often hear of university students struggling to get their foot in the door. Our co-op scholars don't have that problem because they're starting to create and build on that network while they're at university and starting to create those relationships and understand what it is and what it means to network. So, what can you do to improve your chances of being selected? Whole bunch of things, or whatever it is that you're doing outside of school at the moment, outside of the classroom at the moment. This is just a snapshot of some of the things our 2018 scholars were involved in while they're in high school, in years 11 and 12, while still studying their HSC. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it is that you're involved in, we're looking at the soft skills that you're developing through those activities. It could be community work, it could be volunteering, not just once, but multiple times throughout the course of year 11 and 12. It could be surf life saving, or you could be a TEDx presenter. It could be Model UN or debating, you could be a musician, it doesn't matter. What we're looking for is how you've developed your own personality and how you've developed the soft skills that are going to help you once you get into the industry. So we are certainly looking for ways that you can demonstrate leadership attributes, ways you can demonstrate time management. Some of our scholars have had a part-time job and still done really well in their HSC. That demonstrates a whole lot to us, and those are the things that we're going to get you to talk about in your application. It is still an eligibility criteria for co-op scholars that they are achieving academically. So our minimum ATAR for co-op is a 96, but please don't rule yourself out. If you're expecting or hoping or aiming for anything in the 90s, you should absolutely be considering co-op and absolutely be putting yourself in the game, whether it be for co-op or any other scholarship, because if you don't apply, we certainly can't offer you an interview and can't offer you the opportunity. So, super quick snapshot, it is in the business, engineering and science faculties. We have a website, obviously. There's too much information for me to go into because Jonathon will pull out his hook and get me off stage. But all you need to do is jump onto the website, have a look under Future Students to get a little bit more information and experience. You can see some stories of different scholars on the program. All of the different programs that we have and our frequently asked questions are in fact frequently asked questions. So you'll find the answers to what you want to know on there most often. That's it from me. I'm going to hand you across to the star of the night, Claire.
Good evening, my name is Claire and I'll be talking about my student experience here at UNSW. So starting off with how I selected my HSC courses, then how I decided what degree to study and how I ended up at UNSW. First of all, raise your hand if you're a bit overwhelmed by all of the information here this evening. A few of you. I would also be quite overwhelmed if I was here in year 10, but you're already one step ahead of me because I never attended anything like this when I was in year 10. And I'm really here to show you that there's a silver lining beyond the HSC here at university. So here are my HSC courses that I picked. In year 11, I did Advanced English, Advanced Maths, Extension 1 Maths, Economics, Business Studies, Geography, and Modern History, which totaled to 13 units. Then in year 12, I dropped the Extension 1 Maths, bringing it down to 12 units. And then in terms of what HSC courses were counted towards my ATAR, all of them except for Advanced Maths, adding to the 10 minimum units. So how I picked my HSC courses was based off what I was interested in and what I was performing well in. I think there's a big misconception regarding scaling, like mentioned before, that particular courses scale well than others and other courses scale less well. So when I first submitted my HSC course form to my year coordinator, I actually had chemistry on there, but you can see from my list of courses, I have no science on there at all. Science was not my thing, but in my mind, I had this misconception that chemistry scaled really well. And then a few days later, I ran into my year advisor's office and I was like, please stop, I've made a huge mistake. Can you please swap it out for economics? And so that was the biggest decision that I really am really thankful for, that I picked all of my HSC courses based on what I was interested in and what I performed well in. And I also advise that you make an educated choice about what you choose as well. In terms of the amount of courses I chose for Year 12, 12 units was an amount of courses that I was comfortable with, and I liked having a 2-unit course buffer in case if something didn't go quite as planned, because you might have an off day on the actual HSC exam or a question came out of the blue that you didn't expect, and having that 12 units of credit was a buffer that I was comfortable with. And then in terms of how I decided what to study, so I looked at all of the degree guides offered by all of the different unis that I was interested in, and I basically did a process of elimination. So I went through all the different faculties and all of the degrees, and I figured out what I was interested in. So I was interested in business and social sciences from what I was good at school. Then I realized that I was not interested in science, maths, fine arts, and then it ruled out all of these different degrees, including medicine, science, engineering, built environment, art and design degrees. Another degree that was left was maybe law. I thought I could be Jessica Pearson from Suits, but that might not be the right motivation to pick which degree you want to study at university. Then I think it's also important to be realistic in terms of what ATAR you are expected to achieve. So I think it's really important to aim high and pick courses with high ATARs if you are interested in them, but also have a backup option in your UAC preferences, something at the bottom that you are comfortable that you will definitely make that entry requirement to be made an offer in the first round at least. Okay, so here's the big reveal. So I ended up doing a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Arts. First and foremost, I met the entry requirements for the course, which was a 96.3 ATAR at the time, and I found that this best aligned with my academic strengths and my intellectual interests as well. So some of the things that stood out for me was that it was really flexible. So commerce has 13 different majors available because I knew that I was interested in business. I'd done business studies, I'd done economics, but I didn't know specifically where I wanted to end up. And this degree gave me the flexibility to explore a little bit more. And then this was the same as well with my arts degree. So there's 28 different arts majors available and 36 different arts minors. So I ended up doing a commerce major in marketing, an arts major in development studies, and an arts minor, which was a flexible stream that I actually had to write to the Dean of Education within the faculty saying, look, I have a lot of different interests, including international relations, environmental humanities, and human geography, and I had to put forward a specific stream to say that I really wanted to take courses from all these different areas, and that's what I ended up doing. But basically, it's really flexible here at UNSW. So I swapped my commerce major in 2015, I swapped my arts major in 2014, and I've altered my arts minor 5 times since 2014. So either that shows that I'm indecisive or that I have a lot of different interests and that I'm also on a first name basis with the faculty student office. And they're probably glad that I'm graduating this semester. Okay, so in terms of why I picked UNSW, so the first reason being is that UNSW's reputation and degree flexibility. So I spoke about the degree flexibility before, but UNSW had a really well-regarded Australian business degree based on a number of different metrics like ATAR, connections to industry, and so on and so forth. And then there are also so many different overseas study opportunities at UNSW. So UNSW is a real global institution, having so many different connections to universities around the world. So I actually just came back from my semester abroad in the US at the University of Connecticut, which was really fun. So there are some happy snaps from that. The dog picture is actually the university's mascot, where I got to meet like a real husky, which was really cool. Then there was also a snow day on campus. And then also in August this year, I'm going to Oxford University to do a residential intensive period course over the course of 2 weeks. So I'm really excited about that. So it shows that UNSW does have a lot of opportunities whilst you're here. Another reason why I picked UNSW, so the Elite Athletes program. So during the HSC, I competed at a state and national level in equestrian. And so whilst I was doing this, it did detract a significant amount of time away from my studying. And this is recognised by the Elite Athlete Performers and Leaders program. And so when you apply for this scheme, you actually, if you apply early enough, you'll actually receive the outcome of your application before you sit the HSC exams. So I was notified that I received 5 Elite Athlete points before I actually sat the HSC exams. So that was a huge relief for me, knowing that I had these 5 points on top of my ATAR. That was a bit of a buffer for me. So I was really happy about that. And that allowed me to go into the HSC exams with a bit more stress-free in terms of sitting them. It also reflects that UNSW wants really well-rounded students to attend university here. They reward and encourage students to come here, but also provide them with the support to continue these pursuits once they get to university as well. And then number 3, so probably my favourite part of the presentation is campus life. So when you come to university, whether it be at UNSW or elsewhere, There are sort of two different pathways you can go down. The first is that you go to your classes and then you go home, or you really get involved and stay beyond your classes here at UNSW and really get involved in our campus life. So at UNSW, there isn't a day where there isn't something fun and exciting happening on campus. So last week, we actually had Stress Less Week because it's week 10 and it's really stressful and assignments are all happening and exams. And we actually had jumping castles and pets, little dogs coming in that you can pet them because it shows that, you know, it relieves stress and all that kind of stuff. So UNSW is really great like that. So here are some happy snaps. So bottom left was when I was the Event Horizon Coordinator at ARC in 2016, so which actually involved organising large-scale events for UNSW, including the likes of Stress Less Week. And I got to lead a team of 35 volunteers and 14 organising team members, so allowing me to develop soft skills like leadership skills and team-based skills as well. And then top right is when I was president of the UNSW Art Society last year. So that was representing the 5,500 undergraduate students within the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, and then leading a council of subcommittee directors and executive of 35 different people as well. And that was really exciting. And then the top left picture is when we organised the first ever Careers Fair event for UNSW art students, having 3 different nights exposing UNSW art students to the different career opportunities available in both public sector, private sector, and the media industry as well. And that was a really exciting experience. And then bottom right was when I was Vice President of Activities in 2016, organising the Arts Orientation Camp to introduce first-year students, like you will be in a few years, to university. So this is just some of the fun stuff that you can do at university, and that UNSW really does emphasise students getting involved beyond the classroom as well. So to wrap up, UNSW has been my home for the past 4.5 years and has afforded me incredible personal and professional development opportunities, a world-class education with inspirational professors, 2 overseas study opportunities, employment opportunities, a robust professional network, and lifelong friends. By attending this evening, you embarked on the first step of this exciting and somewhat daunting next chapter of your lives by making a well-informed decision about what tertiary institution and degree is right for you. I am sure that each and every one of you will find your home at university, whether that be at UNSW or elsewhere. I wish you all the best in your HSC and future endeavours. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So a couple of key things for you to take away from this evening, in addition to everything else that we've told you. There are events on all throughout the year for you to get an opportunity as a Year 10 student, or Year 11 or Year 12, to what it's like to study in a particular degree area. So this is just an example of some of those events that are on throughout the year. But the one event that you absolutely should make sure you don't miss is Open Day, which is coming up on Saturday, the 1st of September. It is a full day of activity here on the Kensington campus, as well as our Paddington campus for art and design. Last year, about 38,000 people attended, so it's a massive day. Please plan on attending. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a great opportunity to just see things and check it out and what is it like to study in that particular area. It's also really, really important for you to make the right choice for you about where to study and what to study in the future. There will be a lot of people who will tell you what you should do. Your best friend might have a great idea, your parents, your teachers, but it's important for you to sit down and say, this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I want to do in the future. I graduated here from UNSW. It was a great experience for me. It was a great university. I had great experiences throughout the whole time. They also pay me to tell you how wonderful and amazing it is as well. But it is important for us that you find the right place for you. There are great institutions across Sydney and Australia and the world, so make sure you pick the right place for you that feels right. If it doesn't feel right, that's okay. There are lots of other great places to go as well. There is you've got this document here, the 2019 undergraduate guide, which you can collect a copy of from the faculties afterward if you still need one. But you can also create a personalized document that is just for you as well. So it will go into much more detail about specific degrees. So if you head to that website, unsw.guide, you can collect, and that document is produced for you instantaneously and will be sent straight to your email. You just tell us what you're interested in, and that document will evolve over time and stick with you. You can request multiple copies of it as well. So make sure you get a copy of that. And then finally, our Future Students Office is always available to help you. If you have questions at any point in Year 10, 11, or 12, or after Year 12, don't hesitate to contact us. We're happy to help with whatever that question might be. No matter how stupid you think it is, we promise we won't laugh. We will help you through that process. And if you don't want to talk to anyone face-to-face, you can absolutely send us a message via social media as well. So thank you again for coming this evening. We hope you had a great evening. Our faculties are available again for another half hour, and we also have some sandwiches outside for you as well. Thank you. Have a great evening.